Hey there. Welcome back. We are in Right Start Part 2. This is an equipping module for staff parish relations committees. I'm glad you're back here for Part 2. I'm Blake Bradford, the Northwest District Superintendent and Dean of the Cabinet. And I want to remind you that we have a lot of resources online on our Pastors in Transition webpage. You can download those, a lot of PDFs, these videos, a lot of resources for you as a staff parish committee and resources for your incoming pastor. And so let me kind of catch us up to where we are. We're at our second expectation. Remember this session is about a couple of different expectations. Our first expectation, if you remember from part 1, was to say goodbye well. Well, this is the partner expectation. That is to say hello well. How do you say hello to a new pastor? And so we have some suggestions, of course, in welcoming your new pastor. And one is to use symbols to welcome the new pastor. Use your worship service. Some of you may have seen the installation of Bishop Merrill, and there were some creative ways to tell the story of the Arkansas Conference as we welcomed Bishop Merrill as our new Episcopal leader. In the same way, you could use worship and wonderful symbols to welcome your new pastor as, hey, pastor, welcome aboard. Welcome to our congregation. Welcome to our community. I think you as staff parish, of course, have responsibilities about welcoming your new pastor to communicate the change. And there's a lot of ways to do that now, not just worship. I mean, you can imagine social media. You could do different posts. I encourage you really strongly to try out some video where maybe the incoming pastor does some video clips. Maybe you as staff parish can do some video clips too. Some of them can be funny, some of them informative. You can have Q&As, just different ways to get the pastor and the congregation starting to get to know each other using social media. And you can use press releases, just different ways to start building the momentum for the opportunity you have to say hello in a big way to that incoming pastor. Another item for welcoming your new pastor is to work with the pastor to prepare intentional methods to build relationships. Now, this can happen a lot of different ways. It could be, I've used town hall meetings. I've gone to Sunday school classes. You can do these cottage meetings, maybe in neighborhood groups. There's just different ways to go about that. And when I talk about these intentional methods, here's a couple of main pieces I want to be clear on. Number one, don't expect the welcoming line, grip and grin, shake hands thing at the end of the first service to do the job. Oh, well, we all met the new pastor. I'm so glad we know her. I'm so glad we know him. I'm sure he knows us just fine after that, 1 second we had to shake the pastor's hand on our way out the door to lunch. No, that won't work. There's got to be some ways in smaller gatherings, neighborhood, church, wherever, smaller ways for smaller groups to engage the pastor so it can be more personal. And here's my other piece. In addition to, don't just depend on that one grip and grin. The other piece behind that is start now. Start early in your planning for what you're going to do. And here's why. If you wait for the pastor to show up on July 1st, and at July 1st, first day of the pastor, then you go up to the pastor and say, okay, pastor, we'd like to do some get to know you stuff. What do you want to do? And you start thinking about organizing in July. Well, that means you won't actually get it accomplished until August or September. And by then you're really running too late. You've got to start planning in the spring so that as the pastor's showing up, you got events scheduled right there in the first couple of weeks. So right off the bat, immediately, you can have some of this get to know you stuff happening with your incoming pastor. Don't wait till July 1st to begin the plan. Plan now for a great July 1st launch. And as part of that, there's also some methods you need to do to get to know the community. Inviting the pastor to join you as the guest for community gatherings and events, going out to, Rotary Club, that's fine, whatever. Just different ways for you to take the pastor by the arm, say, pastor, come with me. to the football game that we're having, the home game. Come with me to the Rotary Club or the Chamber of Commerce, or come with me to a large neighborhood gathering we're going to have as my guest. I want you to be, and so I can say, have you met our new pastor? Different ways to help the pastor engage the larger community. And they're not going to know where to go unless you, staff parish, and you organize and plan intentionally ways for you and others in the church to help the pastor be their guest at community stuff. They really need your help, because remember, they're brand new in this community. They don't know where anything is or who to talk to. You're the one that can help make that happen. Also, welcoming your new pastors, making sure stuff is move-in ready. And as staff parish, it's your job to equip the congregation to welcome the new pastor. And there's lots of tools we have to do that. One of them is this 50 ways to welcome a new pastor. One of our pastors actually wrote this years ago, Bob Crossman. It is now at the Lewis Center at Wesley Theological Seminary in DC. They have some documentation, and we'll send links to several transition resources, but this one is really helpful. 50 different ways to welcome a new pastor. There's also some other resources we're going to have, just ideas, hints, so, just different ways to make it a great welcome. Along with that is the phrase that I hope is on your lips. Have you met our new pastor? Have you met our new pastor? These are magical words. And here's what I mean by that. Let's say in your town, the Friday high school football game is the place to be for the entire community. What you want to be able to do is be able to see friends, see folks, maybe go to the churches. That's fine. Maybe don't go to any church. Great. Be able to say, hey, have you met our new pastor? That tells everyone instantly, oh, something new is happening at the United Methodist Church. Maybe I ought to go check that out. Now that person also, you got to build a relationship. You helped connect people. You helped connect the pastor to someone in the community. This is great language to have. You'd imagine the same phrase being used in a lot of different settings. Have you met our new pastor? You won't be able to use this forever, but golly, in this window of time, when this is a great phrase to have it, you're just right there at the tip of your tongue, golly, please use it. Leverage it for the opportunity to do evangelism. This is an opportunity for you to say something about your church and say, cool stuff's happening in our church. Have you met our new pastor? And then connect folks up. Also, Staff Parish Committee, we have some other tools for you. So, we have a critical conversation questions. This is a question bank, and it covers all sorts of areas in the life of the church. It's designed for transition conversations. It might be conversations between the incoming and outgoing pastor. It might be the new pastor and maybe the finance team, or the new pastor and the church council, or the maybe the mission team. These are just conversations, just basically conversation starters of concepts that need to be shared in one way or the other, some more informal, some formal, but it's a bank you can use, and pull the ones out that are contextually appropriate for your church. But think about, when folks go into a new church, they sometimes don't even know what to ask. I mean, how do I capture the information I need to know just so I can keep my head above water? Well, this worksheet will help you remind yourselves as a staff parish committee that when someone new comes in, pastor, staff member, anyway, you're going to have to help that person acclimate to the congregation. So I encourage you to take this tool and utilize it well as a way for you to get some information sort of downloaded to the pastor. And so in addition to this conversation question bank, we also have a checklist for transitions. Again, it could be designed for several people to bring together, maybe a packet or a leadership folder. And it has a list of suggestions, kind of a checklist, just of stuff to remember that you're going to have to give to the new pastor. It could be like passwords to the accounts, like here's the Facebook account, here's the computer account for the database. It's designed by subject matter, things like here's technology things, here's congregational documents, here's financials, just different pieces. So the idea behind this is it's probably not going to be one person that collects this stuff. What it'll probably be is different team members, clergy, staff, committee chairs, church secretary, all whoever's involved in the life of the church to collect different pieces of it and then be able to hand that information over to the new pastor. It also could be a vehicle in so many ways for some of those critical conversations that need to happen. Like you show the financials, say, well, come, let me walk you through our budget. That's an example of that. In addition, another tool we have is a staff parish annual timeline. You're going to hear a little bit later in the session that we're going to not only strongly encourage, but I think there's, what can we say other than please, 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 we expect staff parishes to meet monthly, especially in the first year with their new pastor. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, okay, meet monthly. What are we supposed to talk about? Well, we got something to help you. We have an annual timeline, July through June, 12 months, and we have suggested topics for conversation or agenda items that you'll want to use each session. So, here's your July topics, here's your August, and so on through the year. And it also has reminders of any required reports. And the idea behind this is it's a tool to use to nurture that healthy conversational relationship that you need to have with the pastor while staying focused on our disciple-making mission. So I encourage you to use this as a tool, but we do expect you, Bishop Academy, we really do expect you to have these monthly meetings with your pastor, especially your new pastor. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. Another item about saying hello well is we have a set of documents about parsonages. I hope the parsonage, when the pastor moves in, is move-in ready. We do have some parsonage standards, some guidelines during the transition, damage report, all this. But really, I think of it this way. You want to make sure that when the pastor comes into town, that parsonage is ready to go, and you're able to, that pastor's able to nest in there. Maybe the pastor's coming with a family, they want to get settled in. You want to make sure that the parsonage is just really ready for people. You don't want the first thing they see is to be, a real big mess or torn up carpet or some other big problems right when they're trying to move in. And, the moving trucks are pulling up. Please do all that work beforehand. So the office and the parsonage really are both move-in ready. And so take a look at that damage report. What's damaged? What needs to get fixed before the new pastor? Parsonage standards. Are we living up to the expectations that have been approved as policy in the Arkansas Conference? Again, these are tools for you to use to make sure that you're ready to receive that new pastor. Okay, I'm going to do another pause. And part of this is answering questions, either for yourself if you're watching this video by yourself, but if you're in a group of your whole staff parish committee, maybe you want to hit pause on the video and circle around and answer these questions as a committee. So let me read them. First, how can you and your fellow church members be intentional in helping a newly arrived pastor build strategic relationships and network with the community? And second, how can the SPRC encourage and equip the congregation to set up gatherings for intentional relationship building, such as cottage meetings? Okay, hit pause on that and ask yourselves these questions. All right, now we're ready for expectation number 3. And that is to communicate. Communicate. I started this whole session in session 1 saying, pray over everything. Yes. Second, communicate over everything. Don't assume anyone knows information. There are some committee basics. Again, the discipline says staff parish has to meet at least quarterly. The Arkansas Cabinet, we recommend monthly meetings. We expect monthly meetings in the first year with the pastor. Also, remember, there are some other rules around staff parishes not allowing to do secret meetings. Those are rules. You kind of see some points there. The last thing I wanted to share is please, 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 this staff parish time with the pastor, that needs to be a place of confidentiality. It needs to be held sacred. And I hope that you all as the committee and the pastor can have really open conversations. And that means they need to be confidential conversations. Think of them as all sacred times. And so I encourage you to remember these expectations. I want to share this quote from Impact about communication. And this is communication in the context of receiving a new pastor. Communication must be multi-directional, including the pastors, the staff parish, the appointive cabinet, and the congregation. The word relations in the title of the staff parish relations committee is meaningful because their primary work is relational. So the committee's communication should be as much about listening as talking, like in any healthy relationship. In the healthiest transitions, the staff parish or transition team serves as a two-way interpreter between the congregation and the new pastor. What does that mean? It means clarifying expectations and feedback, identifying the congregation's sacred cows and blessed traditions, and connecting the new pastor to the congregation and the community with intentional introductions. So that's the expectation on how you do communication. Again, as I said earlier, we do expect monthly meetings, and we have a whole schedule timeline for you to use to help plan those monthly meetings. So we encourage you to use that tool. In addition, when you think about communicating with the congregation and the community, as staff parish, think of the ecosystem of tools that you have available to you. Maybe video, maybe shareable social media where you can make statements and people can, hit that share link. Ways to communicate. It could be in the local newspaper. I mean, sometimes they're real excited to take a picture of the new pastor or the outgoing, talk about the years or maybe in a decade of service. So when you think about communicating, here's some odd things to keep in mind. First, have a prayerful approach towards saying goodbye and hello. Prayer comes first here. Prayer comes first. So have that prayerful approach. Make sure that folks know they're being prayed for in this. Second, communicate this clergy transition and appointment process. And watch your language around it. Staff parish, you don't hire a new pastor, right? A new pastor is appointed by the bishop. That's how we do things. We're United Methodist. So be really clear about the wording you use, because some people are learning about a pastoral transition in the United Methodist way, the itineracy. They're learning about it for the first time. So let's be careful in our language and really describe with clarity and transparency the process involved. Communicate the congregation's welcome of the new pastor, and help the incoming pastors share their authentic personality, their spiritual heart. Use, as I said, videos, different kind of welcome events to let the pastor be themselves. And that way, folks can get to know your new leader. And the last point is continue a narrative of missional momentum. Sometimes in a pastoral change, as soon as it's announced, everyone thinks, well, we got to put a pause on everything. No, don't put a pause on anything. It's pedal to the metal, push the gas down. You need to push hard into July. And then when July comes, you receive a new pastor. Wow, again, press on the gas. You don't want to use this opportunity that you have before you to slow down. This is about building momentum for what God needs to happen in your church in its next season. So be communicating. This is about building up this momentum. We're going to hit a pause here for a second, and that will allow you to ask some questions there in your meeting. Or again, if you're by yourself going through this asynchronously, ask yourself these questions. First, how will the board or staff parish make communication with clergy more transparent, timely, and clear? Second, how will you support and encourage healthy communication with the board and pastor among your fellow disciples in the pew? So think about those two questions. One is about more structural communication, and the other is about more horizontal style communication. So think about those two questions, answer them in your group, and then we'll come back. Okay, so that is the end of Right Start Part 2. I invite you to join me on the same website there for part number 3. So we'll see you then.